Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the most must-see podcast to someone anywhere in the world. I'm Fred DeCourt. This is Nick, and we are Mark's Side of the Ring. What's going on, everybody? Nick, how are you?
Good to be back on the road to WrestleMania.
Hell yeah. Glad to have you back. It's always a pleasure, and no better time than, like you said, the road to WrestleMania to talk about everything that's been going on in the last week. It seems like every week, somehow there is something to talk about, and during this time of year, it's always crazy. So I thought we'd start things off just recapping a little bit on this past Saturday's Elimination Chamber. Well, I was going to say pay-per-view, but I'll correct myself. Premium live event that emanated from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And, you know, these Saudi shows have been, you know, since the beginning of them in 2018, have been criticized politically, obviously, but in the beginning, a lot of the shows weren't very storyline based. They were almost like exhibition events in between the pay-per-views, right? And it was just kind of like in the way type of thing. But now they've made it part of the actual pay-per-view schedule, and I enjoyed the nostalgia stuff that they would do at the other ones because I enjoy nostalgia. It is nice to have these shows be part of the storyline and building, you know, especially now building on the road to WrestleMania. So before we go over a couple matches, what were your general thoughts on Saturday's festivities?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, you know, they went from nostalgia to being more storyline driven, but I think this one kind of showed more than some of the other ones in the past that you can kind of go both. So you had Goldberg, you had Lita, you know, you had that nostalgia, but then you also had storyline driven content. I thought overall the premium, what are we calling it?
Premium live event.
Premium live event. So,
we joke, but it really, I mean, it does make sense. Pay-per-view is an antiquated term, really, when you think about it. We're just so it's so ingrained in our brains. But anyway,
right. So the premium live event, I thought was booked really well. I thought they did exactly what they needed to do. The matches, you know, for the most part, were entertaining. And I'm sure we'll break down some of the bigger ones throughout. But I would say overall, I'd give it a solid B. Maybe a B plus. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think B plus is a fair grade on the show. I enjoyed it myself. I thought they did a good job. Despite, I know you not being a fan of Bill Goldberg making appearances now, and he may not anymore. As of now, that was his last match on his contract. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't re-sign, but as of now, that was it. But I will say, there's been times that the Goldberg thing has worked, and there's been times that the Goldberg thing hasn't worked. And I think this Saturday was one of the times that it worked. I thought that the match with Roman was well done. I thought it was what it needed to be. I enjoyed the fact that, you know, they obviously both played off the spear thing, but that's not how Roman won. Roman won with the guillotine, which I thought was a cool finish, and it really put a definitive thing that, I mean, Goldberg didn't technically tap. He was just, passed out. But that he won basically by submission, you know, so to speak. It did what it needed to do. And that's the thing about the whole Goldberg thing. If we can utilize Goldberg to get people over and make them look good, then I'm all for it. So I thought they did a good job with that. No surprise that Roman Reigns won, thank God. But Roman Reigns defeating Goldberg to retain the Universal Championship, and by, I guess, technically submission with the guillotine. What do you think about the match? What do you think about the finish?
I think for Goldberg, and obviously I've been super critical of him, and I mean, let's talk about the fact that, they talk about like highest paid athletes per amount of time working, and obviously, you know, professional boxers, you know, Floyd Mayweather was getting like $50 million for one night fighting. Well, I mean, Bill Goldberg, I don't know how much money, how many millions of dollars the contract was, but for 32 minutes worth of work through 5 years, total 32 minutes through 5 years of work, I would say that man's making at least 17 million a minute.
He's a smart man.
Yeah, and then you look at it and say 32 minutes worth of work, 30 minutes are the entrance, 2 minutes of matches combined over 5 years. I mean, hell, the guy made a ton of money for walking to a badass theme. But I would say overall, the Goldberg run. I think it should have just ended when Brock beat him at WrestleMania. I think that would have been the perfect way to go. I think that in certain aspects they've booked them fine. The problem is you have the Undertaker match. You have him beating Bray Wyatt for the title. You have the Braun Strowman debacle, and I know that was a lot of that had to do with COVID. Roman Reigns with cancer.
Right. That was the match. This was the match we were supposed to get then.
Right. So I just think there was so much bad throughout this run that I just don't think they could have really done anything to make me be like, oh, this was great. At this point, I'm just tired of seeing them. It's the same old thing. And it's no knock on him. It's just, unfortunately, the way they booked him being older, it just didn't do it for me. But I think that this match overall on a standalone match was fine. It did exactly what it needed to do. Obviously, the Saudis love they love nostalgia. Goldberg's been on almost every single one of these Blood Money pay-per-views, Blood Money Premium,
right?
So whatever we're calling it, but
Premium live event. There we go.
So it is what it is. But did it do what it needed to do? Yes, in short. But I'm over it. I think a lot of people probably are too.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm a fan of the nostalgia, and I'm a Bill Goldberg fan, and I enjoy when he comes back because of the big match hype that it gives. Like, on paper, like Roman versus Goldberg looks cool, sounds cool, dream match. But I personally don't think he should re-sign. Now, he'd be dumb not to if he gets offered a contract. Well, he'd be an idiot to say no, right? Yeah. So I understand if he does. And I understand if WWE does offer it because, like you said, if for the Saudi shows alone, they want him. So we'll see what happens. But if not, I mean, I think this was a great way to go out. It would have been nice if there was hype behind this is Goldberg's retirement, of course. So that's why I'm not too sure if it was his last. But if it was, to go out against Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship on your back, like how you do it, I think it was well done. It built Roman up, which was the objective of the match was to make Roman look great going into WrestleMania, and I think they accomplished that. So I was happy with the way it turned out. Yeah. The next match we'll go over was the Women's Elimination Chamber for the right to face Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. And I think, again, the right call was made, and I think the winner looks great going into WrestleMania, that being Bianca Belair. Just sort of, I thought, her winning was the right move. And I love that she's facing Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. That is the right move because it's a long-term booking back from SummerSlam when everybody was outraged that Bianca lost in 26 seconds to the returning Becky Lynch. And then they did have a rematch at Extreme Rules. And then it was like, and at the time you thought, okay, she was going to win it back there, or maybe they'd continue it and she'd win it, I'll say in the fall, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then it just kind of ended. They did the match at Extreme Rules, and then it kind of nothing else happened. You're like, what the hell? I guess that's the end of that. So I like how now it's all come full circle, and I think, it makes sense. Bianca's going to get her moment again at this year's WrestleMania, not necessarily in the main event, but in a big, high-profile match. Now that they announced, not to change subject, but they announced that Charlotte and Ronda is going to headline night one, or WrestleMania Saturdays, they're calling it. So that would make you think now this is going to be the big women's match on Sunday, right? Which makes sense. So,
it does, though, now, just not to cut you off, Fred, but it does now. I think we can all agree that we know two things. We know what women's title matches on night one, and I think we can both agree, although not, finalized and not, there's been no, evidence, but the main event of night two is going to be Brock and Roman. So now this, I think, will at least hurt the chances of that match being the main event. Obviously, it won't be the main event, but it'll be the big women's match on night two, where I think it deserves to be. Exactly.
It'll be the women's main event, and it'll be a co-main event of night two, so to speak, right? Yep. So I think it's good positioning. I like it. I wasn't mad when Bianca lost at SummerSlam because I had a feeling, I didn't think it would be this long, but that this was the whole point, was to have her come back up, right? So I'm excited that Bianca won. I'm a big fan of hers. I'm excited that we're getting, and now they'll have a real match.
Yeah.
I can't recall their Extreme Rules match. Obviously, Becky won, but I don't remember if it was a DQ finish or how it ended. But I'm assuming it wasn't like a clean 1, 2, 3 because I'd have to go back and check it out. But
I don't think it was.
I think
don't
she
remember.
cheated at Extreme Rules when they had that one. That was the only other match. So I think this is going to be a real, back and forth great match. I'm excited for it. What do you think about Bianca getting a shot and all these months later from SummerSlam?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think, looking at the match, I mean, who else was going to win that match? You know what I mean? You had Alexa Bliss, you had Doudrop, you had Liv Morgan, you had Nikki Ash, and you had Rhea Ripley. There was no realistic other option to me. So Bianca Belair was the right choice. I think it tells the story, hopefully the culmination of the story that they were telling since SummerSlam, which I think you were at. So
I was.
You got to see that. And
that was amazing. That's why I wasn't mad, because I was just so excited to see Becky.
Right.
And I didn't give a shit that Bianca lost in 26 seconds,
Well, the wheels were kind of in motion for Becky to kind of turn heel there. She kind of blindsided her, cheap shot her.
It was weird, right? I remember thinking, like, oh, well, yeah, that is kind of weird. But I never really thought they would turn her heel because she was the hottest thing.
So over, yeah. But you know how it is with fans. It's like, they want you to be good. They want you to be good. They want you to be good. And once you become good, then you plateau and you stay good. And then eventually they just wake up one day and they're like, we're going to start booing her now.
We're done with you. We're done with you. We got,
Go back to being a heel. So
everybody becomes the New York Yankees. That's what happens.
That's it. As John Cena in the CM Punk feud.
That's where I always get that from, because it's a great analogy.
The Yankees. Yeah, it's true.
That's where I always say, because it's true. It happened. Well, I don't want to say it happened to, but it was starting to happen to Drew McIntyre a little bit. You could tell the fans weren't as hot for him. And I don't know, a lot of that, he had terrible, situation with COVID and, the Thunderdome and all that. But you could tell fans weren't necessarily as hot for him, say, in the fall of 2020 as they were in the winter of 2020, right? Earlier when he won the Rumble and all that. So it happens, even Becky Lynch, like when she left in May of 2020, right? You can't say she was as hot then as she was at that time in 2019.
Right.
It just happens. But, I'm excited for that. Speaking of Becky Lynch, speaking of the Raw Women's Championship, that was another match that we had at the Elimination Chamber. Like you said, encompassing a little nostalgia with the current product. And we had Lita challenging Becky Lynch for the title. And I thought they had a really good match. I thought Lita showed out. Would not be mad for Lita to have another big match. I'd love to see her on the WrestleMania card. I don't know where she fits in right now, but I thought she did a great job. It was great to see her back. It didn't feel like, oh boy, she's past her prime. And the right person again won. Not that I would be mad if Lita won. I can't be mad at Lita winning, but Becky Lynch winning, going on to WrestleMania to defend her title was obviously the right call. What did you think about Lita and the match?
So I thought they booked Lita great. I thought it was a very entertaining match. I thought she looked good. They wanted the nostalgia stuff, so they got it with Lita, and 2 thumbs up. I thought it was a great match, honestly.
Right. Very nice. And then obviously the big match is the men's Elimination Chamber match that closed out the show. But before we get to that, just quick, I want to get your opinion real quick. We also saw thrown in there, we just talked about Drew McIntyre. He faced Madcap Moss, who took a horrific bump. Thank God he was okay. Somehow, some way, he was okay and escaped without any serious injury. But, he defeated him, obviously. And it looks like we're going to get Drew and Baron Corbin at WrestleMania, which at this point in the game, it makes sense because they've been feuding, but they haven't faced each other yet. Madcap's been the one to take all the heat. So it's not made official, but it looks like we're finally going to get that. Not obviously the first choice of a match for me for Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, but 2 things. One, he's been involved in this feud. It'd be a blow off, right? He finally will move on. And who else does he face? who else is there on SmackDown necessarily for him to face that would have been a better opponent besides Roman Reigns, which is obviously not an option. You know what I mean?
I agree. So I think that, if we're fantasy booking, and I think you can pretty much write this stuff down in permanent marker. But so if you have this year's WrestleMania and you have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and assuming Roman Reigns wins, which he should win, if he wins, and we're looking at WrestleMania next year at SoFi, and we're looking at him facing The Rock, which is rumored, or we're looking at, another big match. You got to have him have some month-long feuds with a lot of different people. So part of me was disappointed that they came off the Seth stuff so quickly, but I think they did that because they could definitely go back to it and have a 3-month program. But also, I think Drew McIntyre has to be on the card. He has to win his match at WrestleMania, which he will. I think Drew McIntyre is a realistic opponent for him for a 3-month-long program as well. So he's got to do something, because I don't think what they're going to do, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later anyway, but I don't think they're going to do the same thing they did with WrestleMania 28 with The Rock and Cena, where, it was a year-long build. I think they might start to put the plans in place for that match 1 year from now, but it's not going to be a signed, sealed, and delivered match 1 year from now. So they got to get through some stuff, and I think that's 3 months with Rollins, 3 months with Drew McIntyre, figure out the rest, and SoFi next year is going to be awesome. But
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a case of it is what it is. It'll be a nice win for Drew at WrestleMania. And, Baron Corbin's not a schlup. I'm not a big fan of the Happy Corbin.
Third ankle.
There you go. I don't really care for the Happy Corbin. I think it's kind of running its course.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get back to just being Baron Corbin. I also miss his theme song. So, but, he's a big opponent. I mean, at one point he was main eventing shows. I mean, it's not like he's not a big star. It's just, but whatever. It'll be a big win for him. And the objective here is to get Drew back to where he's a viable opponent for Roman Reigns. And he's not that far away from it. It's not like he's on the bottom of the card. I mean, he's certainly he's closer to him than he's further away from him, right? So I could definitely see this being a main event of SummerSlam for sure, maybe even sooner, who knows. But if they could save it for SummerSlam, I would, because I think it's a high-profile match. But speaking of high-profile matches, the main event of Elimination Chamber, like I said, was the men's match for the WWE Championship with Brock Lesnar defending. And, no, I'm sorry, not Brock Lesnar defending. I stand corrected. Bobby Lashley defending. Brock Lesnar obviously won. And speaking of Bobby Lashley, though, he never actually made it into the match because somebody who went right into his chamber, and they played off that he had a concussion.
Rollins power bombed Austin Theory into
the pod. Thank you. That's what it was, right? And so he never entered. It was concussion protocol, but behind the scenes, he apparently has a legitimate shoulder injury stemming from the Rumble, and he may be out for 4 months.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
It sucks for him going into WrestleMania. I don't know what his plans were. That the whole Raw main event scene is really. It's interesting. It's very interesting because there's no direction, especially now that Brock is the champion and we know it's title for title, which I'm happy with. I'm not complaining about that. I think that gives that match the extra little notch that it needed, right? So I'm all for it. I'm not mad that Brock won, but I'm curious what Bobby was going to do at WrestleMania. I'm curious what half of the Raw roster is going to do at WrestleMania. But anyway, I thought the chamber match itself was really good. I thought the F5 spot on Austin Theory was phenomenal. Seth killed it as always. Brock was great. Apparently when Lashley didn't come in, right? So there was a vacant spot, and Lesnar came in at that time because he was like, true. Apparently he went off script. Now again, I don't know how true that is. If there's anybody I could believe that it's true, it's him.
I believe it.
But he just came out of that damn pod like a beast, literally, and just destroyed everybody.
I mean, he's just so smart, and he knows what to do and how to get over. And yeah, I read the same thing you read, and I thought, when you were looking at the match, obviously Brock Lesnar beat them. So some fun facts: the two fastest elimination chambers from start to finish in the history of Elimination Chamber were the women's and the men's match from this past year's. Were the two fastest, both clocked in at 15.45 minutes for the women's and 15.10 for the men's. The 15.10 being the fastest of all time. And we've had chamber matches at 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So this one was 15, but I thought it was the best 15 you can get for what you wanted it to be done, or for what you wanted them to do. Brock Lesnar smashing everybody. And I laughed at one point. I was on Twitter and I laughed, and somebody was bitching. I wish I had saved who was complaining, but somebody was like, this is just completely unrealistic that Brock Lesnar would just beat all of these people this quickly. If it was real life, it would have been even quicker.
Yeah. So, if anything was unrealistic about it was how long it took.
Yeah. The only thing that was unrealistic about it is that anybody even had a chance at any moment ever. But I thought that was funny. But I thought, the only wrestler who had to at least be booked strong besides Brock was Austin Theory, because I feel like he's the most unproven. Like, nobody's going to bat an eye at Seth Rollins and AJ Styles getting dominated by Brock Lesnar. They're both, Hall of Fame, on their way Hall of Famers. Right. But Austin Theory, if he had gone in and got completely destroyed in seconds, I think it would have hurt his stock. WWE, for one of the knocks that everybody has on him is that they have trouble building stars, and you have this guy, and what you didn't want to do is have him get squashed in a matter of seconds. And I think they actually did a great job with him. He was the last one. He had the low blow. He got a little bit of offense. I don't think they booked him bad at all. I would say of all the matches on the card, the best booked and probably the best match overall of the entire night. So this was definitely a plus for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was the best match of the night. Austin Theory, they definitely put a light on him, and he got his moments, and he looked good coming into. They obviously have big plans for him. Yeah. I hope they don't push him too fast, because we've seen how that can happen and backfire. You also have to strike when the iron's hot, so you can't wait too long, but you can't do it too quick. It's a very fine line. But I hope he has a good match at WrestleMania. I don't know. Again, I have no idea what anybody's doing on the Raw side, so let alone Austin Theory. But I hope he does have a good spot on the show. At one point, I thought it would be him and Shane. I thought it made perfect sense, but it doesn't look like that's happening. So we'll see what happens for Austin Theory at Mania, but we know what's happening with Brock. He's the WWE champion, and he was facing Roman Reigns, title for title, winner take all.
If he wins next Saturday at the event that we'll be at, watching Brock Lesnar fight someone, and we don't know who yet, but won't be Bobby Lashley, but it'll be interesting to see. Heyman teased it will be a opponent worthy of a main event title match at Madison Square Garden. So
yeah. So who, I was gonna bring this up about how I thought it was cool that because they never plug house shows on TV. I mean, it never. I mean, if there's any house show that's going to be a big deal, it's a Garden house show, because it's the Garden. It's probably the only venue that a house show is a big deal, but still, they never plug anything about it on TV. Right. So I was shocked that they did that. It's my understanding that they really want to push ticket sales for this show, because the Christmas one was underwhelming, but COVID was at its height. Yeah, I went to it, and it was a good show, but half the guys were taken out because of COVID. And whatever, it was what it was. But so they want to make a big deal out of this, and I am curious, because I was excited obviously for Bobby and Brock, but I feel like it's got to be somebody big. I don't know who. I would say Seth Rollins, but Seth's supposed to face Roman. So now again, this can all change. But besides Seth, I don't know. I mean, could it be Drew? I don't know. I mean, who knows?
It'll be interesting to see. And will they do a heel or will they do a face? I mean, you listed a couple guys. They're both faces. So do they do like Kevin Owens? Do they do? Because he's not got anything going on, and I'm sure we'll get into his stuff in a little bit. But maybe it's got to be a heel, I would think. But is it Kevin Owens? Could it be Cody Rhodes? Could this be how he comes? I mean, we don't know.
Can you imagine?
It'll be interesting.
So I was listening to Matt Men podcast, Andrew Zarian, big fan of their show, plug them. And the guy on there, not Andrew, but one of the other guys had said that the SmackDown March 4th, which is Revolution weekend, is in Miami, not far from, not that far from Orlando. Anyway, how crazy would it be if Cody debuts on that SmackDown the weekend of Revolution, and they kind of give a receipt for having Punk debut on the Friday of SummerSlam weekend, and WWE does it with Cody on Revolution weekend, and then
very interesting.
And then you can have him like do something with Roman on the SmackDown,
yeah,
and then Saturday do this with Brock. And the only thing is, well, obviously you not have Cody lose his first match at the Garden, and whatever. But
if he loses to Brock Lesnar, I mean,
so if he loses to Brock, right? But true. But what if they do this? What if now Cody has pissed Roman off on SmackDown the night before, and now Roman costs Cody the next night at the Garden because twofold: one, screw you coming into my show and talking trash, and he wants to beat Lesnar at Mania, so he's securing his match with Lesnar at Mania. So I don't know, who the hell knows, but it'd be damn sure interesting. I'm excited for the Garden show. Yeah, like you said, we'll be there. The Garden will always be the Garden, as Vince McMahon Sr. Was famously quoted as saying. So exciting times ahead. This Cody Rhodes return is insane. I can't believe that this is something we're talking about. Out of anybody that I would have expected or considered jumping ship from AEW, because we've been talking about that for a while. Well, we've seen all these guys from WWE go over. Who's going to be the first guy to go over to WWE or back to WWE or whatever? And I'll be honest, I didn't think Cody. I mean, I thought he'd be the last one. If anything, I thought maybe Jericho, whoever, but not Cody. It's just amazing that this is even on the table. And, people thought it was a work. I don't think it's a work at all.
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, is it shocking? Yes, but like, I think the Forbidden Door and all these different like terms are making people just overhype like what shouldn't be. Like, I mean, the guy left WWE as Stardust.
Right.
He wasn't super over. He went to AEW. He got over, but by the end of his run in AEW, they were booing him there too. I mean, Cody Rhodes doesn't do anything for me. Nothing against him. Like, if he debuts, is it like a surprising moment? Sure, but like, is it going to be like an oh my god, I can't believe AEW let Cody Rhodes go to? He's going to be a mid card guy. He's not going to be. I mean, maybe he'll have a main event feud for a month or two, but I can't see him having a sustained program with Roman Reigns or somebody like that. He wasn't even really main eventing AEW.
Yeah, it's funny you say. I mean, yeah, AEW obviously he was one of their main stars, but he was not in the main event title picture regularly. I think that was by design. I think AEW kind of viewed him as a way to put younger people over, as the established guy. But it is interesting that, I mean, if you go based on what his role was in WWE prior, I mean, it's I can't see him being at that level, because this is not the Cody that left in 2016 is not the Cody coming back in 2022. It's like a completely different person. It's just like Drew McIntyre. I mean, I could see Cody being, will he be Roman Reigns? No, he won't be. He won't be Brock Lesnar. He's not going to be the poster boy. He's not going to be the main guy, but I could see him in like, a Seth Rollins role, being like that level where he's main eventer, but he's not the guy,
I would be surprised with even that. Maybe I'm wrong with him. Maybe fans like him more than I do. To me, people like Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre are on just a completely different level than Cody. Cody's to me just, Like, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's for one thing, he's made a name for himself in these 6 years that he's been gone,
This is
and
true.
a bigger name than he left. And the thing too is has to be careful with the way they book him, because he's kind of the litmus test to see how AEW guys that come in are treated.
Yep.
So if WWE's smart, they're going to treat him well and make him a priority, so that AEW guys see, oh well, Cody left, went up against them, created competition, and they're treating him good. So they'll treat me good. Whereas if they doghouse him, AEW guys are like, I'm not touching that. Say, no, look what they'll do. So, I think they have to do right by Cody.
How great would it be if, like, Paul Heyman is like, I have your opponent, and he is Madison Square Garden worthy, and all of a sudden Stardust's music starts playing.
Oh my God. Well, that's one thing I'll say. If he comes back as Stardust, that would be terrible. But
it would be terrible.
I didn't mind, at the time when Cody was at a certain level, I thought the Stardust gimmick was actually entertaining. I didn't mind it. Then it ran its course, and I'm like, okay, they need to make him Cody Rhodes again, right? Yeah. But now, now you can't. But it'd be damn sure interesting if they did. So speaking of Cody's return, the crazy thing about it is he kind of trumped the internet talk of the return of the biggest superstar of all time. And I can't believe I'm saying this for two reasons. One, that Cody kind of stole the thunder from this, but that this was even something to steal thunder from, is the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin is a possibility. Now, again, nothing is set in stone. There's nothing 100% about it, but a possibility of Stone Cold returning to the ring for a match at WrestleMania against Kevin Owens. This came out last Monday night, like right around Raw, during Raw, ironically, and the internet went crazy. And then the Cody news dropped Tuesday morning, and everybody was talking about that. I really don't think necessarily it's a sign that Cody is a bigger thing than Stone Cold, because that's that doesn't make sense. I think it's more of it's more, as crazy as it is, it's more attainable, so people can get behind it because it's actually something that can happen. Whereas I think the Austin thing is kind of more of a fantasy, and people really don't believe it, so they're not going to get as invested in it as they are a Cody return. Plus, the fact that what Cody's role was in AEW to show up in WWE. We know, Austin obviously is on good terms with WWE, and it's shocking for a different reason. But as much as I love Cody, and I can understand why the internet made it, the most important talk of the week, as a fan, I'm personally more excited for the Stone Cold return, because Stone Cold was like, one of my favorite guys growing up, of course, and it's been 19 years, and I never got to see him wrestle. I've seen him multiple times, but never wrestling. So can you believe, Nick, that we're talking about this as a possibility? Do you think it'll happen? Do you think Kevin Owens is the right opponent? And just your general thoughts on the whole deal. There's a lot to unfold here.
So I'm probably gonna come off as a hater.
Boy, I better take a swig of this beer.
I'm probably there's gonna be some people that are gonna say, oh, always complaining about WWE. But if you hear me out, I think you can agree with me and still be excited to see him. To me, it's like, okay, so Stone Cold's coming back, and it's been 19 years, and it's hard to believe that it's even been 19 years. But like, what's the reason he's coming back? So yeah, money. He's coming back for money. But when you look at it, it's like, what kind of storyline are you going to give him to come back? He always had said, it's got to be something worth coming back for. So
he's been very particular. Yes. Right.
You missed an opportunity to have him feud with CM Punk when CM Punk was the champ, which I think would have been really major. Another ones that come to mind is when, Goldberg's first run in WWE, would have been an awesome time for Stone Cold. Of course, that was when he was just freshly retired, and he was right. Like the sheriff and Sheriff Austin and all these different things. But like, I'm sure there's other people that I could think of in terms of like guys he could have fought in feuds that I think would have drew more money. But it's like, we're going to bring him back after 19 years to fight Kevin Owens, who hasn't been a main event caliber guy in years. And he's going to come back because Kevin Owens is making fun of Texas. So it's like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like you could have had so many different angles and so many more entertaining things, but because Kevin Owens said, "Oh, I hate Texas. I hate everything about Texas. Texas football. Texas this sucks. Everything sucks." This Stone Cold's going to come back and be like, "Wait a minute, that's the state that I live in," and he's going to be so offended that he's going to come back and he's going to fight Kevin Owens. The other thing that kind of turns me off to the idea is, I think if it was, if The Rock comes back, The Rock's fighting in the main event because it's built to be a main event caliber match. This match, if it happens, is going to be mid-card caliber. So they're not building it. The draw is Stone Cold's coming back. Cool. I get that. My favorite wrestler, easily top 3, if not my favorite, of all time. But the excitement's just not there for me because we're talking about a match that's over under 7 minutes, probably going to be on the under. He's going to drop a couple stunners, but we've seen dozens and dozens of stunners in the last 19 years. We've seen him on, doing a ton of different things, promos, interviews, opening Raw, closing Raw, this, that, beer bash, beer bath, beer everything. To me, it's just like, I don't need to see him fight Kevin Owens. If it was something that was a little bigger, okay, I understand. But to fight Kevin Owens in a 7-minute match in the middle card of night 2, because Kevin Owens insulted the state of Texas, it just doesn't do it for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, listen. I could see where your issues are, for sure. I mean, the thing is, I think a couple things. One, I think Kevin Owens is he's not like, say, it's not like him facing Roman Reigns or something, or Goldberg or whatever. I think Kevin is the perfect opponent for him for his first match back, if even if it is his only one, because they have the stunner thing, of course. We know it's well documented that Austin is Kevin Owens' favorite wrestler of all time. And he's a guy that can work with Steve if to whatever Steve's limitations are. We know that Kevin will put on an amazing match and bump and feed for him like nobody's business. So I think it's a smart move and a safe move. As far as the Texas thing, they need a reason to have it happen. I don't think that that's going to be the whole. This is just the start of it. Just to lure Austin in. You need something. Because you need a reason for Stone Cold to just show up on Raw and like he's having a match back. Like they could do the Goldberg route and he just walks out. Like But
the other thing too is like they both do the Stone Cold. They both do the stunner. So it's like so like what is he offended at? Like what's the motive for Stone Cold to want to fight Kevin Owens? He made fun of Texas and he uses his finishing move.
Yeah, I mean, no, that is the motive is that he's talking trash about Texas and Stone. That's how we get Austin back. Then they can build their feud in other directions, but this is the lure to get Austin back, and then you build on that. This is just the whole feud's not going to be about Austin defending Texas. Well, it will be a part of it because it makes sense. It's in Texas, right? That will be a part of it, but that's not going to be the whole thing that gets Austin out. I think it's going to get a little more, detailed and become a little more serious than just I hate Texas kind of thing and Austin defending Texas. I don't think that's going to be all it is. That's what it is now. That's how we get Austin back. So I think it's a creative way to create interest and to get people talking and to get Austin back without, because you know what? Then people would be complaining, What the fuck? Austin just is going to show up and now he's in a match?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So now this at least gives a reason to get him back on the show. Anyway, I digress with that. I think a lot of it too may be he doesn't know what he's got until he's in there, and he's not going to put himself out there in the biggest match of his career, in a main event against somebody and then not have anything get in there and be like, this is, and so I don't think he wants to put that risk out there. So this is a nice match. It's a big match. It's a big superstar, but it's not the biggest match of all time, which is almost like a safety thing for him and for WWE too. Do they want to put all their eggs in the Stone Cold basket and then have it stink the joint out? Now, I'm not going to say he's going to stink the joint out because I think Stone Cold can even 19 years later, can get through a solid match. His matches were always brawls anyway. After he had the neck surgery, he was a phenomenal technical wrestler back in the day, but after that, he changed his whole style. So he can get away with a fight, style match. If they want to make it no holds barred or a street fight and work around things, they can easily do that, especially with his character and his style. So I don't think it should be a 20-minute, match. I think it should be, 7 to 10 minutes, hit all your best ofs. Kevin gets some offense in there too. Obviously, I don't think it should be a squash. I think Austin should have a majority of it. But at the same time, Austin's been gone 19 years. Kevin Owens is on the show every week. You can't have Kevin Owens get completely squashed on the show. So I think it'll be a back and forth. But the only thing I will say that has to happen to make this match all worthwhile, unless they just, because listen, I want the match, but I won't be upset if it turns into just a segment where Austin comes out, Owens is cutting a promo, says more shit about Texas. Austin comes out, the crowd's going to go fucking nuts, and he stunners him and then drinks beer, right? And that's your WrestleMania segment. I'll be happy with that. But if he's having a match, I want black trunks, black boots, black vest. I want it all because I don't want him to come out in jeans and a t-shirt and, I don't want a Rock and Eric Rowan match from WrestleMania 32.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? I want either a match or a segment. I don't want.
I would rather a segment.
So as long as I'm going to get a real match, though, again, not a 20-minute classic, but a 7 to 10-minute match in his gear, then I'd rather the match first. But if we're not going to get that, then I'd rather just a segment. Either way, it'll be the biggest return in history because of who it is. And nobody thought, after years and years and years, nobody thought it was ever possible. And this will be the longest period of time in between matches. Yeah. I mean, we've seen guys come back. Bret Hart was like 13 years and Hogan was 9 years at one point. And, Rock was like 9 to 10 years. And, there's been a lot, but I mean, nothing like 19 years.
No.
So, and the biggest superstar of all time. So it's going to be a huge deal. It will be the thing that makes this WrestleMania special. And I don't think I'd love to see him and Roman Reigns in the main event, right? But I don't know if Austin necessarily wants that, like I said, because he doesn't want that pressure. He doesn't know now, can we get there? Now, there's talk that this may lead to more, right? If it goes well. So if it goes well, we can get there. Hell, if they can't get Rock and Roman to happen next year and Austin wants to do it, then next year we do Austin and Roman, which would be fucking insane. I mean, then we could, he'll have faced Owen, but we could, him versus anybody on that roster would be amazing. An Austin and Seth match would be great. An Austin and Drew match would be great. Obviously, like we said, Austin and Roman. Obviously, and this is, excuse me, the money match, Austin and Brock, right? That's the one. I mean, that's the golden. And that's the other thing. If there are plans to maybe do more down the road, you don't want to burn out your biggest one right in the first one. So So I'm a fan of it. I think it's a great way to get him back. If it is it, I still think Kevin Owens is a great opponent for him. To give him a great solid match. He's a great heel. And but I don't want to get my hopes up because I don't still believe that it's happening.
Yeah.
The segment I believe happening. If it's a segment, but I don't believe it happening as a match. But it could. So we have differing opinions on that, but we'll see if it happens. And if it does, I hope it goes well. And I hope we're both happy at the end of it.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I just wish the build wasn't revolved around Texas, but
they have to get him in somehow. I mean, it makes sense because it's in Texas. He is Texas's favorite son.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but you have to start somewhere, and it's a way to get him back. Besides, why would Kevin Owens all of a sudden just going to fucking call out Stone Cold Steve Austin?
They should just do what they did last time. They had it in Dallas and have him come out for a segment making fun of Texas, and then Shawn Michaels comes out and super kicks him, and just as he's getting up, Stone Cold comes out and stuns him, and just as he's getting up a third time, the bell tolls, and out comes the third Texan. And new soon-to-be Hall of Famer Undertaker, and he just gets beat up by the three greatest Texas-born wrestlers.
I mean, listen, if he's not going to be in a match, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that at all. If we're not going to get a match, so we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the match, but if not, I hope we get a cool segment out of it. And speaking, like you said, soon-to-be Hall of Famer. A fellow Texan, The Undertaker, who is obviously well documented as my favorite wrestler of all time. While Austin was my favorite during the heyday of all time and overtime, it was Undertaker and is Undertaker. So, finally. I mean, the only reason it's been so long is because he kept wrestling, right? And I wish he still was. If I had a choice to have him wrestle this year or go into the Hall of Fame, I would have chose to have him wrestle because I just
you love watching an old man get tortured on.
I do. I have to say, I always wanted, to be there for two things: his last match and his Hall of Fame. And technically, I wasn't there for his last match, which
you were hiding behind the barn. I thought I saw you behind the barn with binoculars.
If I knew where that set was, I'd have been there. COVID and all, but who knows if I wonder, I always wonder if that match happened in front of people like they were both planning on and Taker was ready for, as he well documented in the last ride, he was ready for a real match. Would that have been his last, or because of the way this turned out and the mass appeal that it had and, and then with everything happening with COVID, who knows, it turned out to be his last, but would have it been his last if it was a regular match in front of a crowd? I don't know. But anyway, technically I saw his last match in front of people at Extreme Rules in 2019, which that amazing tag match, him and Roman, the guard dogs, I think that it was what they were, or the graveyard dogs is what they were calling them, against Shane and Drew. So I like to tell myself I saw his last match in front of a crowd, his last real match. And then and now the Hall of Fame, it's the biggest thing I'll ever see. This is it for me. This is, WrestleMania is WrestleMania, obviously, but like seeing him get inducted to the Hall of Fame will be the most special show I ever go to, hands down. To say I'm excited is an understatement. I don't even have enough words to describe my excitement. And Nick, you better have good thoughts about this because I'll jump out of the screen and strangle you if you have anything bad to say about the Undertaker.
I mean, is he really truly a Hall of Famer? No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Relax.
No, yeah, I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm looking forward to the ceremony and how they do it. I would think Vince is going to induct him, but I guess we'll find out. I mean, he deserves it. Obviously, he's a great wrestler. So,
yeah, I mean, my thing is personally, and I've heard a couple people say this. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think he should be the only inductee and have the whole night. And I would have different people come out and say words about him. I'd have Triple H come out. I'd have Shawn Michaels come out. I'd have Kane come out, and of course, and then end it with Vince coming out. Something like that. Mick Foley, right?
That's not a bad idea, honestly. I never really thought about that, but that would work.
It would be really cool. But now, I'm hearing, and again, I'm not, there's been other guys that have, been, huge stars that were the headliner, but part of a class, but I'm hearing the Steiners are rumored to go in this year. I'm hearing Queen Sharmell is rumored to go in this year.
Oh, God.
And I don't know who else. They usually average about 6 people, but don't forget, it's also starting right after SmackDown.
Sharmell going in,
huh?
Why is Queen Sharmell going into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I don't know. Honestly, listen, we know they put a woman in every year, right? Tag team woman, headliner, and then you kind of fill out the other spots. But listen, nothing against Queen Sharmell. She was great in that role, but there's other people that should be inducted ahead of her, A. And B, she never wrestled. Now, you could say Tori Wilson wasn't much of a wrestler and she got inducted, but Tori Wilson was like the main diva there for like 3, 4, 5 years, that whole period of time. So I think, like Queen Elizabeth should be going in. Not Queen Elizabeth, Jesus. Miss Elizabeth. Sable, Victoria, Mickey James. There's a bunch of, and I know they all will go in at some point, but
yeah, but this might be the worst, honestly. Like, why is Queen Sharmell going into the Hall of Fame? Makes no sense whatsoever. This might make Coco Beware look like a first ballot Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right. I will say the Steiners excite. If that's true, the Steiners excite me.
Though that makes sense,
huh?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and if nothing else, I never thought we'd see Scott Steiner on a WWE television program.
I don't think
ever
again. Inducting him. So
no. And obviously Rick Steiner, being there would be cool. His son now, but yeah. I can't. I can see them inducting the Steiners and Rick only being on stage. Scott, well, we'll see. But yeah, I would have loved Taker to be the only one, but if not, I understand. But I hope they keep the class small because, like I said, don't forget it is starting late. It's starting, 10 o'clock on Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central, which is where it's airing from.
Yeah,
but at 10 o'clock here, the Hall of Fame we know can go long, and that's when it starts at 8 o'clock.
Are they doing it on Peacock, or is it going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be live on Peacock.
They can go until 3 a.m. if they wanted to.
Well, they could do whatever they want, but
they could.
It's the night before WrestleMania, night one. People are going to be tired, and I don't want people to and then Taker goes on and people are like exhausted after seeing a 2-hour SmackDown and 2 hours of other people. Yep. I don't, so they better keep it short and let Taker have the rest of the night. That's all I'll say. But again, yeah, to bottom line it, no pun intended on the Stone Cold talk, but Taker going in, there's nobody more deserving. It doesn't get any bigger than this. And I am extremely excited. So yeah, the road to WrestleMania is hot and heavy. We no more pay-per-views now or premium live events, before. So it's all things ahead leading WrestleMania in about, I think, 6 weeks, maybe, a little less than 6 weeks now. So,
yep. We're on the road, but thanks for having me on to break it down.
It was my pleasure. Nick, it's always a pleasure to talk and chat wrestling. And maybe we'll come back on in a couple of weeks and do a report on the Garden on how the event went and who Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar ended up facing.
It'll be interesting to see.